Could nicotine really be a nootropic? Now, before I get into this video, I want to make it very, very clear that I'm not advocating tobacco use, cigarettes, chewing tobacco, or even e-cigarettes, vaping, nothing like that in any way, shape, or form. The nicotine that we're going to be using in these products is extracted pure nicotine with something like this. And we'll go into more of the scientific details of why we're doing this in just a second. But let's make it very clear, I'm not advocating any sort of tobacco or smoking in any way, shape, or form. Now, recently I've been reached out to a company called Lucy. They make nicotine gum and lozenges. And really their main objective is to help get people off typical tobacco products and help them wean off those things. Now, when they first reached out, I was like, this does not fit anything that I'm trying to do at all. So I said no and just let it go. And they reached out again recently, and I had an interesting idea that I wanted to try. I'm seeing a lot of biohackers and people even like Dave Asprey, Tim Ferriss have talked about how nicotine is actually a cognitive enhancement tool, and it really could be a nootropic. But the problem is, in recent decades, nicotine's just got a bad rap because it's mostly found in tobacco products. Now, there's over 5,000 different chemicals and compounds that are in tobacco products, cigarettes, and chewing tobacco that make it incredibly harmful. But nicotine itself does some actually really interesting things to your brain that are actually pretty fascinating. Now, too much nicotine is toxic for you. It's not good, you don't want to overdo nicotine, but if you get the right amount, it can actually do some really great things for your brain. There's some very interesting studies out there that show nicotine actually can improve your coordination, your vigilance, your mental energy, and focus. There's also an interesting study that showed nicotine actually can help boost your short-term memory. There was a study done where people actually were able to recall words within a short span of time better when they were taking nicotine. And also in those same studies, it actually showed that people had better focus and could actually stay on mental activities longer while taking nicotine. Now, in these studies, they were taking patches and gum, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. Now, the downside to nicotine is, yes, it can be addictive. It activates the pleasure center of your brain. So if you get too much, it's the same thing you get when you do caffeine or alcohol in excess amounts. The body starts becoming more dependent on it and craves more and more, which gives nicotine that more addictive effect to it. Now, some studies suggest that this is really dependent on how quickly the dose of nicotine is given. So for instance, when you're smoking a cigarette or using chewing tobacco, it's a massive dose of nicotine in large amounts very quickly, which stimulates that pleasure center of your brain very, very strongly and gives that high dose and that really high addictive effect to it. But if nicotine is introduced into the system without the huge spike and is actually slowly entered into the system at a sustainable rate, it can actually help curb that addictive effect to it, which is why many people recommend patches and the gum, especially for people who are trying to quit, because it doesn't give as strong of a response to the pleasure center of your brain. There's also studies that suggest, and the science is still out on this one, but there are studies that suggest that some of the addictive behavior that comes with nicotine comes from some of the other compounds that are in things like tobacco smoke and things like that, that when combined with nicotine give it its more addictive behavior. I'm not going to rule whether that is or not, but better to play it safe than sorry. So with that being said, before we even get into this test, it's very important if you are considering using nicotine, I'll give you my 2 cents on if this is something that's actually useful or not. It's important that you be very careful with how you go about it because, again, nicotine can be toxic. There are upsides to it, but there are downsides, and we'll discuss this more at the end. So the goal for today is I'm going to take one of these gums here. This is their wintergreen gum here, and between these it looks like there's 4 milligrams of nicotine per piece, and you can control, it looks like, the amount of nicotine you get by how many times you chew. The more you chew, the more nicotine gets released. So step 1 is pop Lucy in your mouth and chew 10 times. Park Lucy between your gums and your cheeks, so similar if you're using chewing tobacco. And then repeat and chew, parking 2 or 3 more times until you get to your desired effect. And so the objective for today is to see, I have some work that needs to get done. I'm gonna be working on my book. I got some editing I need to do. So we're gonna see if this actually makes a difference in my brain function and brain power, especially since I've been testing tons of nootropics. I'm pretty familiar with how my brain operates. If I notice a big difference, it'll be interesting to see. If not, then we'll know. So we're gonna try it out and see what happens. Wintergreen. Looks like a normal like dentine ice or something. Smells like normal gum. 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually tastes pretty good. Tastes like normal gum, like not really a noticeable effect, but I imagine the longer it sits there, you're gonna get a little bit of like that nicotine tingles. Okay, starting to get a little bit of those tingles now. All right, so I've chewed now about 20, 30 times maybe, probably around 30 times. And I'm just gonna park it in the lip here, and then we're gonna get some work done, and we're gonna see how it goes. All right, so I finished working, and I gotta say it was kind of interesting, to be honest. I did notice a slight bit of improved focus, concentration, very, very minimal in that sense. Also, if you've never experienced nicotine before, it wasn't like a huge rush or anything like that. I didn't feel nauseous. There was a tiny bit of tingling, in through like the lips and the back of the throat. So if you're someone that's more sensitive to that, what I'd recommend is if you are chewing on it and you're starting to get that tingling, just spit it out. Don't actually swallow any of your saliva from what you're getting from the gum either. But overall, it wasn't too crazy for something like that. Of course, the nice thing about it is you can kind of gradually increase your dosage by how much you chew. So the more you chew, the more of a dose you're going to get. So if you're someone that's brand new, what I'd recommend is just chew the first 10, let that settle in for a little bit, and then slowly start to go from there, especially if you're brand new to something like this. Now, the big question is it worth it? This is where I have a hard time really justifying it. Now, of course, this is a great product. I have no problems with it. I'm not a smoker, but if I was a smoker, I think this would be a great alternative to help wean me off of something like this. In terms of actually being a nootropic, I don't think it's worth it, and there's several reasons why. One, there's plenty of other good nootropics out there that'll give you the boost in energy and cognition and focus that you want without kind of the dangers of possibly becoming addicted to it. Now, the nice thing about the gum is the dosage comes out much slower, so it's not as a significant dose or a significant rush as you typically get with something like a cigarette. You're also not getting any of the additives that you would typically get with a cigarette or chewing tobacco, something like that. So with all that to be considered, I don't think it's really worth it if you're trying to use nicotine as a nootropic. I don't think we're quite there yet, but it's something that we may start seeing coming out in nootropics in the future. It was an interesting test. I did notice a benefit from it, but is it worth it? To me, not so much. I think eventually we will start seeing this come out more and more, but as of right now, it's not quite there yet. Hey guys, thank you so much for tagging along with this experiment. It was kind of an interesting one, a little bit different, but hopefully some of you found interesting. Thank you so much for tuning in with this video. If you liked it, make sure you click that like button over there. And if you're new to this channel and you're ready to see more experiments or more videos coming your way, make sure you click that red subscribe button over there so you get alerts the next time we come out with a really cool video like this. Can't wait to see you guys in the next brain hacking video.